show, Marney!
Marney!
California will set you free.
Marney, we're so excited to have you on the Lucy and Annabel show.
I am so excited as not only an avid fan of you both, but an avid fan of this show. Very exciting, very surreal.
All the way from
here.
England.
All the way from England, I know. 9 p.m. for me. What is it for you? 1 p.m.?
1.
Yeah.
Did you have to leave the pub for this, or?
No, I didn't. I just had a really hot curry though, and I had to stand outside because I was like, why did I do that right before going on a podcast that is visually recorded? So if I
You're gonna get the Digimarias. You look like you're glowing. You look dewy.
Yeah, let's call it
you
that.
do, babe. I know how much money you spend on makeup, so maybe next time just have a cuzza instead.
Yeah, exactly. Have a curry and a packet of Rizzler to just dampen down the sort of horror.
Oh my God. Do you remember anyone? You as well. You're looking at me like I'm Mitch. You're here too. When those things came out that were like a little grease patch that you could dab your
blotting paper.
Dab your face with. Oh yeah, blotting paper. I had so many of those in my bag in high school.
Just for all of the grease.
They were the coolest.
It's just Rizzler.
Take your little
It's just
compact out
Rizzler.
and just do this.
Is it actually just Rizzler?
Yeah, that's
know
all
what
you
Rizzler
need
is.
is like
rolling paper.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I've got plenty of that.
Okay.
she knows.
Wow. I am the only American in this conversation, so you'll have to bear with me if I don't know a lot of your inside lingo.
You're a spiritual Brit.
Also, I'm talking a little funny today because I hurt my mouth really badly this week.
Yeah, not only did you hurt your mouth, I think it's gone rancid.
I think my mouth is going to fall off.
What did you do?
I was flossing my teeth, right, with one of those little handheld flossers. And it got stuck in my back tooth. So I stuck my finger in my mouth to hook it and pull it out. And when I yanked it, my nail tore the whole inside of my cheek all the way to where my lips meet. And so now it won't heal and I can't eat. I've been eating through a straw, just protein smoothies for 2 days now.
I was actually going to say you look really skinny.
Yeah, well done.
Amazing.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so today, if I'm lisping a little bit like this, talking out of the side of my mouth, that's why. So,
There's a comedian, an Irish comedian called Dara O'Brien, who does a sketch about the idea that we're made in God's image and how he has certain moments in his life where he feels so entirely undivine that it's impossible that we're made in God's image. And one of those is the moment where you go to eat food and you're so hungry you chew through your own face and then can't eat for 2 weeks or whatever. So I feel like you are undivine, Lucy Walsh.
Whatever, not important today.
No, I love that. I've been thinking about that so much through through my grief processes. I'll have moments where I'm just and then a dog will take a shit in front of me and I'm like, okay. I'm
how can I honor my grief right now with this?
And I remember once I was in my journal and crying and the dog took a shit in front of me and I was just like, it doesn't matter how much pain you're in, there is always a dog taking a shit somewhere.
It's good to keep that in mind.
No, it is.
Perspective, right?
Look, you didn't come here to have
Listen, today is all about you, okay? Not about us. So let's get straight to it.
Your moment.
Marney is our guest today. You are beautiful. I'm so happy to meet you. I've heard your music. It's fantastic. And we want to know all about you and your life and what your journey has been. Go. I'm just kidding. That's
oh my God.
Question. I think I'll let Annabel take it away because you two know each other through. Tell us how you know each other.
Trauma.
Yeah.
Bit of shared trauma.
No, we do. And actually, in one of your early episodes, this isn't me swatting up actually, I've read the book. It's in one of your early episodes, Annabel spoke about how she's someone who comes into people's lives and sort of, I don't know how you said it, but it's holds the mirror up or sort of says, this is the thing that needs fixing. And that's
She did it to me today.
So nosy, bossy bitch.
I don't know if you're nosy though. I mean, you are nosy, but I don't feel like you were nosy. But basically,
this morning she totally rearranged my life before we started recording this in a good way.
Well, but that's how we met.
Well, we met because I actually had heard of Annabel from a guy I knew who had a real big thing for Annabel for a long time. So I was aware of Annabel a long time before we met as this girl who this guy I knew was crushing hard on. And then
boys like me.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's true. He wasn't a great boy, but you know,
well,
that's no shade on you.
Okay, all right, let's move on.
So we met, I would say like 7-8 years ago. And we were put in a writing session. It might be.
I feel like it's longer than that. I feel like it's a good solid. Well,
it's around a decade.
Yeah, about around it.
Okay, nobody cares.
So we were we were put in a writing session together, and I had never written with a woman before. And I remember going to the writing session and I texted Annabel and I was like, I'm really sorry, I'm running late, but I'm getting my eyebrows threaded. And she was like, oh, where do you get your eyebrows threaded? And I was like, this is great. I already much prefer this. And we did like a session together. And then I ended up going to Annabel's house in London the next day, and it all came out. All the terrible things came out. And then from there, we became fast friends, wrote together. But I mean, you moved to the States probably like 3 years in, I would say.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah, definitely.
So yeah, for the last sort of 5 years or so, you've been over there. And we've seen each other. We've seen each other in LA. We've seen each other in London. But we met through being depressed songwriters and artists. And that will make a fast friendship.
Suppressed.
Suppressed.
So
artists.
Marney is a singer-songwriter based out of Hackney in London. Do you know this area?
No, but I should now that I'm half English.
She doesn't know. And we met, doing writing sessions. I remember that first session we did. I thought, this isn't good. Something's awry here.
You could tell something was awry with her.
Oh my God. We had 2 sessions booked in the studio. We were meant to go at her publisher's studio. And I remember the first day being in there and I was like, something's
ew.
Gross. I'm cancelling.
And did you guys talk about what was going on with you personally?
We didn't really talk about it day one.
No.
And we were meant to go into the studio the next day. And I said, do you know what? Why don't we meet at my house tomorrow? And we'll write at my house. So she comes over to my house instead. We sit down. We have a cup of tea. And I don't know exactly how the conversation came up, but I definitely had less tact then. So I probably was just like, what the fuck is going on?
You had less tact then?
Yeah, even less.
Whoa.
I remember it as, when I retell this story to people, it was a show me on the dolly kind of conversation. I felt like I was a child who had come from like some horrific situation, and we were sat like in your living room in Ladbroke Grove on 2 opposite sofas, and Annabel was like, I feel like there's something going on that you kind of nearly mentioned, or so it was something like that. And it was like an out of body experience. I feel like I zoomed out and I could see myself, and I was like, you're about to do it. You're about to tell this person, you're about to open the sort of Pandora's box, and you're going to let someone in and tell them everything that's going on with you.
Wow.
And I just remember it being like I felt like a child, and it was literally like, and when that happened, what then happened? And it was like literally me saying, and up until then, there were 3 people in the world who knew what a terrible time I was having. One was a therapist, and one were my 2 oldest friends. And beyond that, I had never shared what was going on, which was a very toxic and abusive relationship with a producer. And Annabel was like, like, I realize people are listening to this, so my isn't very helpful.
She's doing the action of pulling a rope.
Pulling something out of something with rope.
Yeah. And
can you share with us some any more detail about that situation in your life, or do you want to keep it private?
It's in general, I was 16 years old when I met somebody and they took advantage of me in many ways. And then it took me a long time to identify that and also have the courage to be able to share it with other people in my life. That was really the sort of biggest part, was to be able to tell other people, look, this is going on and I need some help with this.
You basically were in this coercive relationship with this producer, you being manipulated, gaslit, tale as old as time. Unfortunately, I think the thing that stands out for me with your situation is that you were 16 when this began, this relationship began. And this producer was not a teenager. No. He was a grown man. And that for me was the sense that I got from the conversation that we had on the first day. And you were still very young when I met you, Yeah. I don't want to probe you too much, but I also, I don't know if you listened to last week's episode, we were discussing Lucy's situation that she's coming out of, which was a high control group.
Yeah, it was a narcissistic abuser within a high control group within a cult.
Right.
You said the C word.
I said it. So we don't want to probe you too much, but it's right in line with experiences that I have had. The listener feedback that I got this week was shocking, of people also being in these situations but not knowing how to say it. It's taken me all this time to even say the C word, not know what it is. They don't even know what it is. They just know that they went through something really serious and they can't make sense of it and they're still struggling underneath it. So anytime I feel embarrassed to say these things, I just have to remind myself that speaking up really allows others to speak up as well. So anything you say here is in that spirit.
I'm very open about what happened to me. For me, the Harvey Weinstein thing happening was this amazing shortcut in vocabulary in being able to say what it was. Because if I meet someone and they bring up that person's name, I'm able to say, he's a Harvey Weinstein.
I really like that you just said a shortcut in vocabulary. That's really helpful.
It is. And I think, it's hard because I've heard Lucy speaking about, a high coercive group situation. And, you've not been explicit about what that is. And that's completely understandable. But obviously the people that it resonates with probably know what you're talking about. But I am sort of in that weird place still where part of me doesn't want to speak about it explicitly, mainly to protect my family.
Yeah.
But equally on the other side of it, I'm like, oh my God, I know how powerful it's been for me when I've heard other people speaking about their experiences. And then there's also the other side of it, which is when you don't want it to be your story. You don't want it to be your leading point.
Yeah. You don't want to be known by that. Everything you're saying is, thoughts and feelings that I'm going through. And I have friends. I have a guy friend who was being molested by his acting teacher when he was a child. And it went on for 6 years. And many boys in their small town were by this man. And many boys came forward and took him to court. But my friend chose not to because of what it would do to his mother.
Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying. That guilt that you're worried about your family feeling is big.
Yeah, and I think it is kind of that thing of, not wanting to relive something, and also when you've gone through a lot of work to kind of get, you're away. I feel like when when you reintroduce the idea to someone who really cares about you, it's like, but how did it happen? What happened? And you kind of have to go right back in, and it's kind of hard to, not emotionally hard, but just it's hard to accurately even explain it, because now I see it so differently to how I experienced it. I would have explained that story so differently 10 years ago or 12 years ago. And so it's hard to explain to someone like, and then I got, abused by someone without sort of, it sounds like you knew it was happening at the time and you didn't. even though you did know it was wrong because you didn't tell anyone. And it's a very, very weird space of kind of shame. But it has been something that honestly Harvey Weinstein was like something I was so relieved by, because it just blew the whole thing open.
Yeah. Wow. I'm somebody that, like, I cringe at myself doing this podcast. Like, every week I'm living out my trauma in front of people, because it's just like, I'm just like, oh my God, shut the fuck up. And when other people do it, I'm just like, cringe, do that in private, please. But
it's helping
it
people.
helps people. And that's what keeps me doing it, is that I get messages every week with how much I'm helping people. And I'm just like, God, fucking, you know, like, it is, I get it that you don't want to be known for that. And I think there is a particularly specific trauma attached to when it comes to being sexually abused and coerced in your working relationship, and especially when it's in the arts, because then you become that bitch that walks in the room and everyone's like, oh, is she gonna say that I sexually assaulted her? And it's like, okay, no.
Well, also, it's the thing that I've always been a very confident, quite sort of, you know, everyone has their sort of frailties in different ways, but I think a lot of people to look at me or encounter me don't see me as vulnerable. And so it's very hard for them to believe that I was vulnerable, because that abuse took place in a corner of my life that most people don't see or don't experience. And abusers prey on those parts of people that they can identify that other people can't. And, you know, other people would see someone who was like an extrovert, wanting to be an artist, wanting to be, you know, seen and looked at and paid attention to. Oh, not that kind of attention. And so I do think it's a hard thing for a lot of people who are in the arts and who present as these very confident extroverts, as much as we're all sort of crippled introverts at the same time. You know, the people I went to school with would never think of me as someone who would be abused. And so that's the other side, is that you then have to qualify who you are, you know, beyond the version of you that everyone has subscribed to, or that they've, you know, interpreted in their own way. And, you know, I think people, because I'm now, especially on the back of what I went through, so ardent about that kind of shit, people would be like, well, that would never happen to her, because she'd call it out straight away, and she'd be like, no, no, no. But, you know, guys, it like starts somewhere and ends there.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, I'm just so in line with everything you're saying. It's really spot on. Well, yeah, Annabelle's just said it does not define us. So let's talk about other aspects of you in your life. How did that all tie into your music, and what were you doing with your music at the time, and what have you gone on to do? What has that journey been like?
At the time, I signed to Sony Records. So I signed to a major label. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that shit show.
We should talk about that sometime.
But I signed to Sony through a production company with that producer. So my entire deal at Sony was essentially owned by him. And when I wanted to get out of my deal with him, you know, he told me, oh, they won't want you without me. They only signed you because you're an artist that I've developed. So I did have to kind of strike out on my own and be a little bit brave and have some conversations one-to-one with people at the label who were like, that guy, we don't care about that guy.
Well, that's what abusers do, is they tell you you'll be nothing without them, and that if you leave them, you'll fail.
Yeah, which I don't think many people realize that they explicitly say that. It's not some kind of like wishy-washy thing that you get sort of an impression of. You are told.
No, it's not a metaphor.
No, it's not a metaphor.
I'm not assuming that's what he means. He made it very clear.
It's in every study of narcissistic abuse that you can find. It's textbook, massive part of the abuse. It's a cornerstone of the abuse.
My ex used to say to me, no one will ever love you as much as I do. No one will ever know you as well as I do.
Yeah. Love that for you.
So you went to the label and you started to find out that he was lying, of course.
Yeah, and I was starting to find out that he was taking money, which is, you know, something that, again, I had.
Shocking.
Yeah, shocking. I know.
Wow.
Like, I'm like,
I mean, maybe it's shocking for the listeners, but it's like, that's what happened to me as well. In my deal, I remember I was asking for fucking months for the statements, and they finally came. Well, we got first class flights. We got studio time for a studio that was already rented and pre-owned. We got music. We got all this shit going on here, which I didn't spend.
Well, this is it again. It's like, I think that people think, oh, he took my money. People think, oh, you probably signed it. No, they go into your budget and they sign off on the money that is spent because they are in charge. And in my case, I was in a production deal. So anything I earned from my deal, he took a percentage of, a massive percentage. And then when I eventually got my statements, which were being sent to him 2 years after he was no longer part of anything to do with me, 2 years after that, he was still seeing statements of what Sony was spending or weren't spending on me. Anyway, when I eventually got them, if you're in a producer deal, which I feel like these kind of details are important for people to hear, and maybe there are artists, I imagine, that listen to your show, in a producer deal or that kind of production agreement, if somebody is getting a percentage of what you earn, they don't then get paid on top of that for additional services. That's the deal of it. Okay. So if you're in a deal with, like I was, a producer, and he's taking 40% of what you make, he doesn't then get paid $5,000 a track for being a producer. But in my case, he was. And in my case, apparently there was £12,000 spent on tour support. I've never been on tour. So I don't know what tour I was on, but I wish I'd been there. It is funny though. You have to laugh.
Great.
Like, I know it must have been like, packed venues.
It must have been an amazing.
But when I went through that process of getting out, the really interesting thing that happened was I told him, I want to get out of this. I want to get out of this. I don't think he believed I was ever going to sort of like press the red button and really take action. And I said to him, like, you know, big, huge, like emotional, shouldn't have been in those conversations. But I said, if you want to be a decent person in this, what you will do is null and void our contract and you'll let me rewrite the terms of it. At that point, I'm still thinking, I'll still give you something, you know, let's forget that. Don't worry about that. But at the point where at the time I told my then boyfriend, he disappeared and I never heard from him again. As soon as I had told a man, as soon as I had said, I've told him everything, he knows everything that you've done, he knows everything that you say, he has seen everything, I never heard from him again. And the same thing when I then went to deal with my lawyer, who it turns out was like in cahoots with this producer, who when I went to my lawyer and finally like brought down all the guards and I said, this is what happened, he said to me, well, little girl, you have got yourself in a mess, haven't you? And I was
That's
like,
a nightmare.
Oh, fuck.
It's like a horror film.
Yeah.
Honestly, it makes me feel
oh my God,
murderous.
I know.
Well, I did actually get to have my moment with that lawyer at a party about 2 years ago. I saw him and I was like, I'm doing my fucking thing. I'm doing the Charlotte in Sex and the City. I don't know what happened to me. I think I channeled my dead grandmother and I knew he wanted to avoid me. He'd sort of caught my eye halfway through the evening and acknowledged me in that way of like, oh, I know you. Oh, I don't want to know you. And then the people I was with, I told them, that's that person. He's over there. When he tried to leave, they blocked his exit. And I went over to him and was like, Charlotte, Mr. Big, I cursed the day you were born.
Yes. Did it feel good?
Oh my God.
It felt amazing. I mean, I was like shaking, but it felt amazing. And it felt amazing to have it witnessed. But I find it so interesting that those two individuals, I had to get rid of the lawyer, obviously. I had to get rid of the producer. And the point where they both left was the point where I brought a boyfriend along with me. So I literally brought my boyfriend to the lawyer's office and was like, you've fucked me over.
Interesting that you're saying that. Do you remember how long I was trying to get out of my deal? Last time. I was trying to get out. I was trying every motherfucking thing to get out of my deal. When did I start getting a response and getting that out of my deal? When I brought in two friends of mine who were men who were important in the industry. And I just wrote in my email their 2 names, and I said they will now be CC'd on all communication pertaining to my record deal and my production deal. That shit was signed in 10 fucking days.
Yeah.
It had been years.
I just remembered it happened to me too. It happened with a manager, a really, really toxic manager. Just after me for a long time, and then I brought in my stepdad, and that's what stopped him.
Yeah.
We all have that experience.
It's just not
to say
a coincidence.
that men aren't shit, but
Look, little girl.
look, little lady.
Look,
you've
little-
really got a thing or two
look,
to learn
little
about
woman.
this world.
But
Okay.
it is one of those things where you kind of are stuck in this toxic male environment, and the kind of only thing to do is fight fire with fire and bring a dude in.
Yeah.
You know, because they just don't listen to you.
You don't bring a knife to a gunfight.
No,
Bring a fucking
exactly.
AK-47 and you fucking
Take the place out.
destroy.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was a long-winded description of how you and I met, and these were tragic beginnings. But the person that you are today, compared to the sort of, you know, you were young, you were a kid. I see you as a kid when I first met you, even though you weren't a child.
I was very
you know?
young. Yeah.
And that's not who you are anymore. And I don't mean that in a sad, like, oh, they like fucking ruined your like youthful
Oh no,
glow,
please,
whatever, like,
thank God.
She's got her youthful glow.
yeah,
Look at
she's
that skin.
glowing. I mean it in the sense that like you pulled your big girl panties up and you fucking got your pussy on straight, and now you're back on the grind. You know, and that is what the whole point of us getting guests on like you is about. It's not for us to like relive
Lament
all of our
anything that
trauma
happened.
and like,
No.
yeah, there's obviously going to be a bit of chat of like comparing stories, because we want to do that, because we don't want what happened to us and what happened to you and what happened to Nova and whoever else our guests are to happen to any other fucking person. And if that means that sometimes we have to share things
Air
which
the
are a
dirty laundry.
little bit embarrassing
We're willing
or
to
whatever,
do that.
then it needs to
Yeah.
be done. That's how I feel about it anyway.
Yeah,
So-
but the point is that we have all been victorious over these situations and gone on to have beautiful lives, and we're all living proof of that. And somebody stuck in a situation like this needs to know that.
You know, girlies, if you can't get out your deal, just bring a man along and you'll
Just bring a boyfriend, and that shit will be handled.
It's called feminism. You should look at us.
Yeah. It's called feminism. Get a boyfriend.
Bring your dad.
So here we are today.
God.
You know, one of the points that really gets my goat when we have this conversation is those motherfuckers took my 20s from me. They took my fucking 20s from me. That guy took a solid 10 years from you.
Yeah. It's really hard to reconcile with that. And I find it really hard to, there's part of me that is like, purely as an artist, the music I was making at that time is music I'm glad I didn't put out. Like when you guys talk about, you know, like Annabel, when you say like, oh, my music videos or whatever are like the things you've hated. And because I was in such a shit deal, nothing ever saw the light of day. And so that's the kind of, I try and take little silver linings of like, well, do you know what? I'm glad I never put the music out that his name would have been on. I'm glad I never got far enough down the road because the road was bad, you know? And it's like,
Yeah.
They stole your 20s. Yeah. And you're totally right to feel like that. But also, thank God it didn't become your 30s, you know, thank God you didn't release music with them, have it successful and, you know, have it become your whole life. And I think it is really hard. I was looking through my camera roll the other day and I saw pictures from sort of, I don't know, 2017 maybe, which was right in the time where I was then trying to get out of my deal with Sony after I got out of my production deal. And I was like, this is such a sad time to look through because it was so void. Nothing was going on. And it did make me really sad to look back on, but it does kind of, I don't know, it lights a bit of a fire under your ass to be like, don't do that again. You know, and I
100%.
find myself going back to those behaviors sometimes, you know, waiting, being a good girl, like waiting for the email. If I haven't heard it back, like, you know, I'll wait another day. No, I did that for like 10 years. Don't do it again. But I do understand that feeling of being robbed. And especially as an artist or as an actress where your age is so thrust in your face, it's hard to not resent someone who invaded that kind
Cost
of
you time.
prime. Yeah,
your prime years. I mean, that's just a fact. It's not like that's just industry standard. It's not like an opinion.
Yeah.
That's when women make the most waves and make most money in the beginnings of their careers in their 20s.
I can't believe that because that's not how it's gone for me. And if I were to believe that, that would mean that I should just quit now.
Oh, 100%.
So I have to just not believe that.
Well, you just have to be the change that you like, not without sounding super self-helpy, but you do have to be the change that you wish to see.
Yeah.
And I think that that's part of why we're having these conversations with artists like yourself, is because I want for us to send a really clear message that just because you had a false start, or maybe like in my situation, couple 2-3 false starts, doesn't mean that it's over for you. Like, you can pick yourself up and start again. That is the nature of being an artist anyway, is that we're evolving, we're changing, we go through different phases, and it's always going to be more okay for men than it is for women. That's just, I don't believe it's ever going to change. I don't believe there is any amount of feminist literature and seminars that it's ever going to change the fact that aging is always going to be okay for men, and it's not going to be so okay for women. And you just have to, I think, just say fuck it and do it anyway.
Exactly.
I mean, my theory on this, and this is something that Max instilled in me, was like, as long as you still look hot, doesn't matter. You just have to look fit.
You know, I had this exact conversation
take care of yourself
with a friend of mine who I won't name check, but she listens to your podcast and loves it. And she's an
Friend
artist.
of the pod.
Big friend of the pod. And it's also, me and her are like an alternate Lucy and Annabel. She's American, I'm British. You know,
Love
she's
it.
very nice, I'm a demon. You know, it's just very parallel. And
Okay, I don't know.
I'm very nice.
I don't know who you're talking about right now. So you.
I do.
But we had this exact conversation this week because she's been having conversations about her age as an artist. And I literally said the same thing. I was like, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's all irrelevant. I was like, but by the way, you look 24, so it's fine.
I think as long as you look good, doesn't fucking matter. As long as people still want to fuck you or be or look like you, you're golden.
Or just get one of those.
Sorry to all you
wigs.
ugly bitches out there.
As long as you feel good. I think as long as you feel good, that'll shine through. But yes, it is a visual.
Oh, she's so nice.
Oh,
She said, as long as you feel good.
Well, listen, I mean, the fact is that it is a visual business, especially my business of acting. It's a visual business. It's your face and body up on the screen. And that's part of the job is making your appearance the best it can be. And it takes a lot of work. People wonder, oh, what? She just gets up on a red carpet. Do you know the work that it takes to get up on that red
Bitch,
carpet?
do you know the work it takes? You don't diet or exercise.
You know what, bitch? I look like $1 million, but I look back on
In Monopoly money.
Well, I hate Monopoly. You know we both hate board games.
I don't even know
bring it up.
how to play it. And speaking of your face, if you don't get that fucking thing,
Stop
you're gonna
talking
get
about my
you're
cut.
literally, it's gonna dissolve your cheek.
Can you just stop looking at it? You're really messing with my flow here. I'm trying to tell Marney something important.
You're trying to be
Marney,
so sweet.
listen. All right? It's you and me. Forget about her for a second.
Yeah, but your face, Lucy, you need to get that.
Oh no, you're both teaming up on me. You know, actually, this is good. And everyone's going to be like, why are you being mean to Lucy? It's because I told her she needs to go to the doctor about it. And the only way she's going to listen is if I bully her about it.
You bully me
True
constantly.
or false?
True. You saw on my face when you said, "Can you go to the doctor today?" I lied.
You said yeah, and I said no, and you said I'll go tomorrow. I said no, you're going to go today.
God damn it!
All right. Anyways.
What I wanted to say about this is, I have to believe that the lessons that my record deal taught me that went awry, and that this other thing in my life that I keep talking about, recovering from. The lessons from that, it has to be because the best is yet to come. It has to be because it needed to prepare me to get to where I am now. I can't think that anything went wrong it's such a typical thing. Oh, everything is meant to be. There are no coincidences. But I do believe it. And I don't believe that it was wasted time, because each of us got really valuable lessons that made us incredible.
Yeah, and
that has to mean that we have to go on to do a lot with it. It can't just be that, oh, I had a record deal once and then I just, left the business and owned a vitamin shop in Vermont. That's not going to, although that sounds fantastic.
Where did that come from?
I don't know. I'm just saying, the point of all this talk is that we have a responsibility now to do the things we want and use our time wisely and not miss out on anything.
But it's also, with that, not only is it, you've got to believe it for yourself. The weird thing is I believe it for everyone else. It's myself that it's a problem for. Yeah. Annabel puts out music. I'm not like, oh God. I'm like, yeah, duh. But if I do it, I feel differently. And the other thing, on what you were saying, Lucy, about the responsibility to move the conversation or have the conversation, is that we're also in a time where you guys have a platform. 10 years ago, you couldn't just rock up and have a podcast for an hour every week where anyone can listen to it. You had to be platformed. You would have had to have some kind of slot on a show or had to be given some sort of traditional media format. We're now in a time where we live in the information age. We live in an age of endless and sometimes frustratingly inane, endless conversation. But it does mean that people are able to talk now more than ever before. And you see it with artists. Artists used to never have relationships. Even when I was in my deal, before social media had really, really happened in that massive way, artists never really knew each other in that sort of early stage, because all you did was meet other writers and producers and label people. Yep. You were never in a room with artists. Whereas now I'm friends with so many artists and we talk about this stuff and we red flag people to each other. And so there is just this sprawl of connection. And that's the thing that is really frightening to those abusive people. And that's the reason why, equally people get scared of getting Me Too'd or whatever, because suddenly there's this ability to speak freely and to a lot of people all at once. Whereas before I'd have had to wait to be in a room with a lot of people at a party to be like, hey, this guy's horrible. So I think not only is it that we're moving on and people are more open to these ideas and more open to hearing experiences from women without going, oh, you climbing slag. It's like now you can actually hear it because you just couldn't hear it before.
Yeah. That's why Annabel and I started this show, was to talk about these things and help fellow artists and people, regardless of if you're in the arts or not. Just, we felt a responsibility to share our experience, and it's grown into something that we could not have imagined, with Max and Ryan dying, and it opened us up to this whole other world of discussion. But this is the core of it, is to
connect,
say the difficult things and
connect, basically.
Yeah.
Well, also to realize that people do want to hear this stuff. If you had pitched something like this to traditional media, if it had been picked up, it would have been on a sort of obscure, a late night thing, late night radio, alternative, whatever. I don't know enough about it, but
now there's nothing between us and the listeners and artists and the fans. There's a direct link now, and it's really powerful. And people should be afraid. And it's why the abusers should be afraid. They definitely should.
But it's why it
sounded like a threat. I liked it.
Well, I've got, some things up my sleeve.
She's not so nice. She's got a knife on the table.
I'm brewing some plans for the future. Well, I want to hear about your music. I want to hear how you started out as a singer and a musician in your life?
Well, I did a course last week learning how to be a barber because, you need to have extra strings to the bow. And somebody had followed me on Instagram and was like, oh my God, you're a singer. And they were like, are you a really good singer? And I said sort of jokingly, no, but I'm a really good show off. And they were just like, oh, okay. I was like, oh.
It's a joke.
That was a joke.
They were American, weren't they?
No, Americans they were very, 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 very British.
Okay.
They don't get jokes either. But so how did I start? I guess I grew up in a family that loved music but weren't musical. My grandmother was a dinner lady, cooked in school canteens, but she was incredibly interested in reading, and she taught herself to play the piano, and she used to write songs about our days together when I was little, and my mum has them all written down. So my nan was really this very creative person, but not in a way that's
sounds like a fairy.
She was, but not in a way that was openly creative. She was very much just an old Irish lady who drank lager and smoked cigarettes all day long. Icon.
Oh, the best kind of
wow. What was her name?
Mary Hartigan.
Mary.
But she was an obvious, the obvious sort of link for me musically. And she, sang all the time and was just Irish people love music and love poetry. You think about how small Ireland is as a country, and then you think of how many great writers, poets, actors, comedians, it's potent with kind of torture and therefore creativity. So
can I stop you there? Also famous for its potatoes.
It is famous for its potatoes.
Now, I thought that was not true. I thought that was one of the very racist stereotypes that people throw around. But actually, then when I found out that no, it's absolutely true. There is an endless number of ways that Irish people can cook a potato.
Really?
I think your grandpa once made you a starter of a boiled potato slice.
I can't remember if you remembered that.
And then it was a potato for the main course as well.
Yeah, my granddad, bless his heart, perfect match for my wonderful grandmother. But when she died, he suddenly had to learn to cook and had never, ever cooked in his whole life. And so I used to go to his house after school as a teenager because he lived so nearby. And he used to make me these dinners. And it was salmon and potatoes, sausage and potatoes, lamb and potatoes. And anyway, one day I went round and he was like, I've made you a starter. And I was like, oh my God, so fancy. What are we doing? And he brought me a saucer with just 2 boiled potatoes. And I was like, okay, but why isn't this a starter? Why am I going places and seeing tricolore salad? I'm looking for 2 boiled potatoes.
Of substantial size. I went to the grocery store yesterday, Marney, and I bought 6 potatoes. The good kind. So what you might not know about America is there's 2 types of potatoes. There nice ones, which are yellow, and then there's these brown, muddy ones that everyone cooks.
The russet potato.
Right. In UK, we have 50 different types of potato. There's a potato for everything. We're spoiled, and they're cheap. Guess how much 6, just normal for us, potatoes cost?
I don't know, that would be £1.20 or something here.
$9.
Why?
So as an English person here, I've spent a majority of my income on potatoes because I like to eat many of them.
Me too.
I thought Joe Biden was an Irish Catholic. What the fuck?
I don't know what he is. Don't get me started on that. Look, anyway, back to your grandma who's a fairy. I just really needed to let you know how much those potatoes cost.
I will also say that one time I remember being in your flat in Ladbroke Grove and I was like, what is this smell? I was like, I feel so happy right now. And you were like, I don't know, I'm boiling old vegetables. And I was like, yes.
Yes.
That is so nice. So my grandparents were musical, and the sort of irony was that my grandmother was incredibly talented but introverted, but my granddad was a show off and just wanted to sing. He'd go to the pub and be like, let's sing songs. So it was all sort of, it's just part of culture. I don't think it was anything sort of particular to my family. My mum loves music. I didn't grow up with my dad, but he loves like Elvis Presley and Patsy Cline. And so when we eventually met, that was kind of like the one thing apart from DNA that we had in common to talk about.
So wait, am I remembering this correctly or incorrectly? Did your dad go out for cigarettes and never came back?
Kind of. He went out on Christmas Day and never came back.
Oh, even better.
That's worse than
But I was 2 months, so I didn't know.
Well, you think.
You're like, major life hack. Have your dad walk out when you're a baby. Doesn't affect you at all.
Yeah. Yeah. But then
we're all fine.
I'm so good. Please, get my boyfriend to get me out of this deal.
Yeah.
Okay, so he walked out when you were 2 months old on Christmas Day. Look,
did he get you a Christmas present that year?
No, my mum
like
actually
he did, and it was him fucking leaving.
Peace out. I'm just going out to get your gift. No,
your poor mum.
Yeah, so my parents were together. So my dad is born and raised in Ireland. My mum was born to Irish immigrants in London. So my dad moved over when he was like 19 or something, whatever age people move countries. And him and my mum got together. They had been together for a bit, I think, like on and off. Then my sister, who is 4 years older than me, was born, and they got married 2 years after that. 2 years after that, they had me. And 2 months after that, he was like, I was in, but now I'm out.
Wow, that's the same thing with me. Like right after I was born, my dad left. And
Same.
I've always carried that as my fault.
Well, I carry it as my fault because my older sister basically just said it was my fault.
You don't have to wonder.
She really, like, for a long time, I mean, I'm hoping she's over it at this point, but it was like you came along and then dad left and everything changed.
Whoa.
Nice.
Wow, we all three have that in common.
Well, I never felt like responsible for it. I think one thing I realized as I got older was that, sorry for you guys, but my dad left really kindly. No, he didn't. But my mum did used to say when I was little and used to say like, why don't I have a dad? She used to say, because he was not ready to be a father. And in later life, I look back on that and think that's an odd thing to say to a child instead of because he, is a difficult person or because our marriage didn't work. It was like he wasn't ready to be a father.
Oh.
But me and my sister definitely.
Yeah, he was already a father.
Yeah, but I think he was like in and out. He was very they lived together, but he was very unreliable. I don't think he was a committed parent. I think he was sort of there, but not really.
But you're right. It is a strange thing to say to a kid.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should have a baby. It really.
Yeah.
That can be some on our merch.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
Yeah, big lesson. But yeah, I think, it's interesting, obviously, listening to you guys talk about that and talk about your dads and your experiences. And obviously, that's something that Annabel and I have spoken about a lot over the years. But it's a weird one because obviously you both know your fathers, know who they are. I didn't meet my dad until I was 21. I didn't meet him until that previously mentioned grandfather died, who had wanted me to meet him. And so by the time I met my dad, the concept of the father who left and the man I met were very separate things. So it is kind of compartmentalized in some way. There are obvious ways in which it's affected me over the years that are unconscious. Like I've always had older boyfriends. I've gone out with dads. I've been in abusive situations with male figures in my life.
I can't relate to any of that. Can you, Annabelle?
No, I don't
Annabelle's very quiet.
I don't know what you're talking about, you guys.
You guys have nothing to say, really?
Nope.
Really? How many months in? But for me, that's never been about this individual. It's always been this concept of a father. When I met Mick, my dad, it was bizarre meeting this person because there was no feeling. And you've I'd lived up until 21, been through a lot of shit by that point, been told by various people, spoken about it with therapists, of this idea of what's it come from, your father or whatever, or has it come from the fact that the father figure in my life was my grandfather, a much older man? And
I wonder if that had altered the way that your dynamic with your sort of, I don't know why I feel to say biological father. From the outside, I very much see your grandfather as your father figure and the dad in your life.
Totally.
So it's like Mick comes along and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
What did he have to say? Was he excited to meet you?
Lucy, it was like meeting someone who's in love with you. And it's like meeting a fan. It was bizarre. It was like unrequited love. It was meeting someone who has this tears in their eyes, is like clutching your hand, has spent every day, like, when he's not sort of in some other haze, thinking about you. And you're like, oh, nice to meet you. Anyone could have arrived in the parking lot I met him in, aside from the fact that I'd seen photos of him and I'd have been like, okay, it's this guy. There was nothing there. And that was so odd. And what was weird was that when my sister then met him, there was a much bigger reaction. And also, like, my sister was 4, but I don't look anything like my dad. I look like my mum's parents.
You really do look like your mum.
Yeah, and it's like I've just got no kind of paternal DNA. But as Annabel said, my grandfather was my father, and he very consciously stepped up. And I know from my family, he was like, cool, I'm going to be their dad. And my grandfather was like 6'2", didn't drink. As soon as his first child was born, he was like, I'm not drinking. This is the ruin of everyone. Saved every penny of his money, was an amazing husband, was an amazing father, was like deeply religious, and was the most hardworking person, but also like funny and a real alpha, but like loved women. And my dad is like a very small, he could be a jockey. He's like kind of nervous. Like, he has his, like, like, the thing is, for the guy, I have compassion for him. Like, I know a bit about his life story. I can kind of understand maybe why he couldn't be a father, or why he just had to leave. I don't see it as this great cruel activity. But what is interesting is that my sister just had her first baby, and man, did it spin me out. And I think a big part of it was looking at this tiny baby and going, hey, 8 weeks from now, imagine one of these guys just goes.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that maybe as I get older and start to shift in generations, I don't know if I want children, but as I become an aunt, it like rears its head in a different way. But I do feel like, so I feel like I'm going all over the place. I had a father figure. I had a really amazing male presence in my life. I just didn't have a dad. And obviously that father figure died when I was quite young, and he wasn't my dad. And you always know that he's not your dad, but I don't, it's a weird one. People sort of, I think sometimes when they hear that, I'm sure you guys experience it, they're like, and I'm like, hey, it's really fine, but I know it's not fine for everyone, because I know that even between my sister and I, we have really different feelings about it. And I have never felt like it was a personal slight on me as an individual, that the guy who wound up being my dad was incapable. Whereas I think my sister, I hate to speak for her, but I think she has felt it much more as a personal.
Yeah. Well, she's that much older. And I'd say that my older sisters are like way more fucked up by the dad stuff and have like more attachment to him and ongoing things than Sarah and I, who are both the youngest of both of his marriages. And it's really interesting what you said about holding your niece. Is that niece?
Yeah.
And thinking like, wow, how could in 8 weeks
baby?
I so specifically remember the moment I had that with my nephew.
Do you?
And he was so specifically, like, I'll never forget it. My nephew Phoenix I have another nephew, Harrison, and a niece, Lauren, but they were in America while I was living in England. So I wasn't exposed to them as much, you know, in their infancy. And I was, you know, those little, like wheelie cars or bikes or like donkeys that kids ride and you push the thing. It's when they can't do that yet. So I was pushing him down the lane and he was giggling and his little legs were going along the side. And I remember I was just hit with it so hard of just how could you, there is nothing in this world that could bring me out of this child's life. Not a fucking thing. And this isn't even my kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's,
I feel the same thing for my niece.
that's really,
Like, I would die for her.
you know, I really was so struck by that at the time. And you know, your sister's just recently had her baby, so you're still in the midst of that. And is it still spinning you out slightly? Because for me, it spun me out for a while and it made me really angry at my dad for a while.
Do you know what? It was so weird because my sister, so there's my sister and I, and then because we only grew up with one side of the family, there's my mum and her sister. So there's this kind of like, you know, mirroring generations wise. My aunt didn't have children. And so there's this kind of weird thing of like, oh, well, my sister's had a kid now. So does that mean I'm now the one that's not going to have the kid? But when my niece was born, no one had warned me. No one had like, I hadn't seen anything, not that I'd been researching it, but I like lost my mind for a week and I still haven't spoken to my sister about it because I didn't want to be like, hey, you know, I'm feeling shit about this lovely thing. And I also the feeling I had wasn't envy of this baby who has been born into a wonderful set of parents. It was just like more a sort of sense of, oh my God, I love you so much. How sad that I didn't have the same. And it was that kind of feeling. But I had like a really bad week and then maybe 2 weeks. And now I feel like a lot better about it. But for a long time, I didn't know what it was. And I had to like really talk it out with like my best friend and, you know, be like, what am I feeling? I definitely felt a sense of mortality of like, oh shit, I'm the baby of my family. And I was like, I'm not the baby of the family anymore. Also, I'm someone's aunt and I'm a fucking loser. Like, I was like, I'm someone's aunt.
Oh my God,
and
do not say that.
His self-talk,
no, this is what,
it's the worst.
This was where I was at. This was
self-talk.
where the like brain was. I was like, I'm somebody's aunt. I don't own a house. I haven't achieved what I want to achieve or what I thought I would achieve at the point I had imagined aunthood. You know, these thoughts you don't even know you've had about what aunthood is.
Yep.
And I was having the feelings of, a bit like a sadness for myself, a sadness for my sister, you know, just thinking like this little baby is being born into something that is what all babies should be born into. And we didn't have that. And it just, the whole thing really like freaked me out for a bit. And then I actually texted the other uncle. So the paternal uncle of the baby, who I'm quite close to. And like a couple of weeks into like Molly being here, I was like, hey man, are you okay? And he texted me back and was like, yeah, finding the whole thing really weird. I was like, oh my God.
Wow, some men go through it too.
That is so interesting. So Ryan died November 26th or 27th, whenever Thanksgiving is. And that week, my best friend was going to tell me that she had become pregnant.
Oh,
and then
God.
the boys died. So she couldn't tell me and she didn't know when to tell me. And I mean, like, it wasn't news to me. They've been talking about it for a long time. Ryan and I said at the beginning of last year, they're going to get pregnant this year. Like, we just, like, you know, I was like, it's going to happen. It's fine. But when I found out, it really threw me. Not because I wasn't so happy. Like, it's all, we've talked about it since we were 16. You know, I've known her since we were 16, and she's wanted to marry this guy that she's with and has always been with and is the only person she's ever been with, and build a house together and have a baby and have like a creative job and travel. And, you know, those are her kind of things that she wanted to do. So it's not like a shocking newsflash, you know, and I know it sounds like a weird thing to say, like, we've wanted this for so long, but her and I are so close and our lives are so interlinked that it's like, I've wanted it for her for so long. But to find out that just as Ryan had left, her baby was coming was such a head fuck. And I didn't know if that was okay. I was just like, oh my God, am I a wretched person? You know, like you said, you don't want to speak to the person about it, but whatever. I was really lucky in that she was unbelievably on a level about it. And she was the one that said to me, like, I find it really weird that people aren't talking about how weird this is for us. Like, it's so fucked up that Ryan's died and that I'm praying. Like, she was the one that, and I was like, this is why we're fucking best friends. Like, we don't have to explain anything to each other. We both feel really weird about the timing. Obviously, we're obsessed that the baby is coming, but the timing really spun us out. Because for me, one of the big things was I need to be with Ryan, and I was like, we need to move back to England as soon as possible. Layla and John are going to have a baby and I cannot miss it. Well, I've missed the whole thing. The baby's coming in the next few weeks, you know, and I can really relate to that. I think feeling as well, of just being like, whoa, like, what's happening?
It's a bit, you know, like a sister is a best friend. And obviously, you know, Layla getting pregnant, you losing Ryan, that is such an extreme version of an element of what I felt, which was like, our lives have gone different directions. And we're no longer like trudging along as a pair. And I think I really felt that when my sister had a baby, even though I'm like, I'm this baby's aunt, I'm so excited. We were so close to our aunt and still are so close. And so I felt, you know, I don't feel disregarded. I've seen the baby loads. I absolutely adore her. And my sister's like the most amazing mum, and it's amazing to watch.
Is she?
Yeah, she's like just taking it to it like a duck to water. Like, and I always thought, you know, a bit like what you're describing. My sister always was like, I want to get married. I want to do this. I want to have a baby. And as much as she always wanted to get married, like a mother is a role I had never really imagined. I knew she was going to be a mother one day, but I hadn't imagined her as one. But I think I did feel like we have this tiny family and you have just made your own branch away from mine. And I was like, like my best friend said to me, like, I think you're probably feeling weird because Mary Kate has her own family now and you're like not a central character in it. But that week that she had her baby, you know, on Instagram, she like changed her bio to like wife to so-and-so, mum to Molly. And then she'd done like, you know, the two girls in the black outfits emoji and had like tagged me. She didn't know how I was feeling, but I was like, oh my God. Like, I was like, oh, I'm still ranking. And I think that was a huge part of what I was feeling was like, we've always been partners, shared experience. We have the most DNA in common of anyone on the planet. We have, you know, that language that you only have with people you've known for all that time. And you now, it was a weird thing of just being like, I'm no longer the most important person in your life, even though she's married. I was like, suddenly felt like we weren't there. And I think for you with, you know, going through that so soon after Ryan passing, it's like, wow, you may have been on that same road, or at least on the version of it that you wanted to be on. Whether or not you wanted to have children, or whether that was something you were going to do or weren't going to do soon or ever, to have your best friend not only still have her husband or partner, but to be carrying on in life, that is huge. Like,
it kind of is very, it's like a very when you're already feeling so fractured, it's just, it wasn't even on my mind. And then I was like, oh my God, all my friends are going to start having kids. And my husband's gone. You know, and it just, that day I was really trying to be fine all day and I was so manic. It was so crazy. I was like, oh, it's great. Everything's fine. Just like being psycho. And then I went to the horses, and on the way back from the horses, I screamed in the car so loudly. and I had wanted to the whole time and hadn't been able to. I screamed so loudly that everything shook and my eyes went like black. And then I went to my sister's house, who doesn't have a kid, and I was like, Layla's pregnant, and she was like, oh my God, come inside. Because she gets it, because she's made the choice not to have a kid. She understands that feeling of when people are starting to do that, you know, and I think, some people are going to turn their noses up at this conversation. Go fuck yourself. You know, like some of us don't have kids yet and we're not sure, and it makes us question things when people around us have kids. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's normal.
Yeah, it is normal. You look at yourself and you go, God, should I be worried? Is something wrong with me? Why don't I have a kid? Either why don't I want them, or why don't I know yet? Or where's like you said, I haven't achieved XYZ by this time in my life. And you just said something that really resonates with me. You said children, when a child is born, it all of a sudden reminds you that you're mortal, that you're going to die, that, you know, of mortality. And I think that's what I struggle with a lot with kids. I think I have a lot of fear about having kids, because then...
Well, it's life cycle, isn't it?
It's a life cycle. Exactly. It's a life cycle. And I totally understand the sister thing. My sister got married and I went inside the wedding venue and cried in a room that wouldn't come out at the reception. And I didn't know what was happening. I didn't understand it. I still don't really understand it, but there's so much tied to that sister bond.
It's not because you're not happy for the person.
No.
You know, I remember
not
when
at all.
One of my childhood best friends was getting married and we went dress shopping for her, and I remember touching the dresses and just feeling like I knew the person I was with wasn't the wrong match, and like the whole thing. And it's not because you're not happy for the person. It's just all of these messages that are being sent to us our whole lives start getting louder. And then your internal kind of existential philosophical threads start jiggling around, and it's like, it's a confronting experience. And I wish that it was a little bit more okay to talk about. I feel like we're going to get some shit for this, but I wish that it was a little bit more okay to say like, no, I'm so happy. I'm just going to go over here and have my own little thoughts about it, and then I'll check back in afterwards. I think that should be all right.
But also to realize that, you know, the beginning of something is always the end of something else. Yeah. And therefore it's like intrinsically a slightly mournful experience. When I was having my week of spinning out, I spoke to my mum, which was probably so unhelpful in case she was having the same feelings. But I was like, I just burst out crying. And I was like, I'm having a really horrible time, because the last thing that Nanny and Granddad were grandparents, and then they died. And now you are a grandparent. And she was she was like, but people live longer. And I was like, yeah, I know. It's just that you've
entered that cycle now.
You're in that stage. And I really felt like, oh my God, like even like you're saying, like with your sister getting married or with your friends getting married, you are now living the moments that your parents have told you about anecdotally, which to me sounded like ancient history when I would hear about my mum going to my aunt's wedding. And now I'm like, it's just very confronting.
Sounds like 200 years ago, yeah.
Yeah,
it's so
and it's just like...
So the way that you guys are feeling about it with like the passing of time and the roles and all of those things, I don't feel any of that stuff. It's not about that for me. So that is so interesting to hear, because that wouldn't have even fucking crossed my mind.
Really?
Wouldn't have even crossed my mind, no. Mine is such a different feeling of... It gives me a deeply introspective feeling about my choices and my life. It's not about like familial roles or patterns or even the passing of time. It's not even about that. It's the mirror.
And mine is both.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Is like I hear that for sure, but there is no element of it for me that is the other thing that you guys are experiencing. So that must be really interesting to kind of have those two, because like the mirror is enough on its own.
Also, it's kind of confusing because when I was little, I never, ever, ever once in my life thought I want to get married and have a baby. Never. I would get a wedding magazine every week at the grocery store, but it wasn't because I wanted to get married. It was because of the costumes. I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be performing.
Drama.
And so now at this time in my life, I look around and all my friends are on their second and third marriages with 2, 3, 4 kids. And I'm going, maybe I don't want that. Do I not want that? And it seems like I need 20 more years to decide, but I don't really have it.
Yeah.
So
I hate that feeling.
I hate that feeling.
Shouldn't I know by now? Or have I just not admitted to myself that I don't want children? Is that what it is? It's very confusing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm getting that like slightly tight feeling when you're like, yeah, oh no, oh God, oh, we're having the conversation. Because the amount of people that have asked me since my sister had a baby, way more than when she got married, are you broody? And I have to say, no. And all I think is like, well, I see some people slightly roll their eyes at me. I won't name names, but some people slightly roll their eyes because they think I'm trying to be a kook. They think I'm trying to be like, I don't want a baby. I am too fabulous for a baby. It's like, no, I feel nothing but love for this baby. It doesn't make me feel that thing that people have told me you will feel, you will know. And it does make me question, because I really don't know if I want to have children. I really would like to meet my children in a purely narcissistic way. And I know that I have no...
So healthy.
Like,
love that you just said that. I think that's so fucking healthy.
I'd love to meet them. I'd love to know them. And I also think about like, I'd love to be like, 50, 60 and be like, oh, my son or my daughter's coming and this, adult, like, who are they? Are they going to be a doctor? Are they going to be... are they going to be a doctor? Because then I'll have them.
If they're going to be a bum on the street, don't even bother.
Don't want
If they're going to be an artist,
I don't know.
Good God, fuck.
They're going to
no.
be an actor. Don't.
Going to be, it'll be hell. But I just don't know. And then I have conversations where people say to me, don't worry. You'll know. Don't worry. There'll come an age where your body's going to tell you. Now, first of all, I don't know if that happens. It hasn't happened to me yet. Second of all, I don't know that I want to listen to some hormonal rage that I might have for a year or even 3 years and make a permanent life decision based on that hormonal rage. Yeah. Like, your body will let you know. I'm like, well, my body lets me know when I'm on my period that I want to eat 4 chocolate croissants. I don't want to do that as a permanent decision.
Yeah,
exactly.
So, it's just so interesting that it's sort of just what's expected. I remember Ryan
it's like the vaccine.
Right. Vaccine gate.
Same people.
Okay. So, yeah,
when are you having kids? When are you getting the vaccine?
I don't know, bitch. I've got one viable ovary. I'll let you fucking know about both.
I'll let you know when I get the tingle. Thanks.
Wow. Okay, I was going to say something, but nothing's as good as that. So let's move on. Okay, well, the list of things that I really wanted to discuss were mostly Real Housewives.
You can quick fire me.
No, I'm just interested. What's your favorite branch?
Real Housewives?
It's a show. She doesn't know anything. She knows nothing.
Why are we talking about Real Housewives?
Because we share a passion.
You do?
Yeah, and you need to get on that train.
Yeah.
Speaking of
Lucy,
weddings and wedding dresses and trains, we're going to get on the, Real Housewives. What's your favorite branch? Yeah.
Do you know what? I have to say New York. Beverly Hills was my first. I then watched New York. I then did Salt Lake City. I then did New Jersey. I adore New Jersey. They're all airing at the moment, which is really, really a wonderful time for me.
It's such a nice time.
But I think New York brings so much chaos. They are so chaotic.
The energy is... Sarah and I have to brace ourselves to watch it.
Yeah, and also, like, I don't know why my sister thinks it's the weirdest thing, because my sister thinks this character is our mum, and yet I have a deep affection for Luann from New York.
What do you love about Luann?
I just think she's such a trier. I love that she's so so cringe, and I just feel so bad for her when everyone's laughing at her, like posing with her cabaret poster in Miami. I'm like, leave her alone. She's so precious and she is just harmless.
Come on, I'm gonna show you.
I just want the listeners to know that I do not.
Don't try and make yourself better than us. No part of this conversation
has to do with me.
Don't try and make yourself better than us. Doesn't make you better. It doesn't make you better. I'm just letting you know.
I'm not trying to be better.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to preserve my brain cells.
No, you're not. You're trying to be better. Come down.
I am not trying to be better.
Come down into the muck with us. You're from working
class
background.
It's so good.
It's so good.
My show was The Girls Next Door, okay?
No one knows what that is.
It's the Playboy Bunnies. What that is. It's the Playboy Bunnies.
The Girls Next Door. Yeah, great show. Okay. Luann de
What are you trying to show me?
She was like a baroness for a minute, but then they got divorced, her and the baron, and then she was allowed to keep the title as a courtesy. The dumb bitch got married again.
Lost the title?
It didn't last, and she lost the title.
Oof.
And then got arrested.
Luann de Lesseps?
De Lesseps.
Luann de Lesseps.
De Lesseps.
And also she was a countess.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, what other ridiculous questions do you have for Marney?
Okay. No, I'm showing you Luann.
She's a hot mess. She is kind of fabulous.
Marney. She says she's a hot mess.
She is, but why?
Look at that slit in her dress is all the way up to her vagina.
Cabaret, bitch.
Oh my God.
Okay,
but in terms of, other than like loving Luann, Erica Jane is my favorite on Beverly Hills, and Margaret Josephs is my current favorite, along with Dolores Catania on Real Housewives of New Jersey right now.
Damn.
Honestly, I'm kind of living for New Jersey at the moment. Honestly, Beverly Hills, whatever, don't care. I'm so bored by them. They're so boring and uptight and just like awful. So here's the cast.
Tell us about your song California.
No, come on. I want you to do something
about popular culture. It was written about the Real Housewives.
I want to hear. No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. It really wasn't.
I want to hear about your song
the song California.
Yes, I got her off the topic.
Shall I go?
You're so boring.
Yeah, I want to hear about California.
Yeah, I felt personally attacked by this song, by the way.
What, because you tried but you could never leave?
Yeah, I literally, when it came out, I was like, I'm actually angry at Marney. Like, I can't speak to her for a minute because I'm feeling actually kind of attacked by this song.
Were you being serious that that's an ode to Hotel California?
Well, I've always loved that idea of, you can try but you'll never leave. So that is very much like a nod to that song and that line. But I wrote that song.
Isn't it?
It is a very romantic concept, and I think
as a concept,
not as a reality.
What, LA or the song?
Not being able to get out of somewhere.
Not getting out of this fucking hellhole.
Well, I wrote that song before I went to LA for like my first writing trip there, and I just kind of had a feeling. I was like, I feel like I could really get lost in this place. I was going there at a time when I was like very open to getting lost somewhere. And it just felt like a pilgrimage, in the way that people move there to chase their dreams. And you're like, what a strange place to have a bunch of people doing that. So that was what that song was about.
In California, there's a place I like to stay, where all the angels come to pray. They all act shady, like they got cocaine to move. They think it keeps the crazy out of you. They're on their knees, singing, California will set you free.
But then when I came home from LA, I had spent a week in Nashville by myself, didn't know anybody, had the worst time. Then went to LA.
A lot of pasta.
Who goes to Nashville to eat pasta?
Yeah, because during that time we were in our Airbnbs and all we did was eat individually, each of us.
You go to Nashville to eat barbecue.
No, we ate it in our Airbnbs alone in bed.
So that's so funny because I did an interview today and they were like, can you tell me about your latest song, Good Man, which there's a line in that about spaghetti. And I was going to be like, it's kind of because when I was in my Airbnb in Silver Lake, I bought like 2 kilos of spaghetti from Trader Joe's and like a kilo sauce of marinara sauce and just ate that every single night and watched Mad Men. But yeah, I'd been to Nashville and then I went to LA for like 5 weeks, and I was quite sad to leave LA, but my God, I was so happy when I got home. And I realized like, yeah, it's not, I love LA.
It's a really fun place to visit, I think. But
I unfortunately am marrying the only Brit that refuses to live in England, so I don't know how that happened, but I'm devastated.
I think it's a hard place.
He's still got new. He's still like.
I'll get him back. I'm already looking at properties in Scotland, so he doesn't really have a choice.
Yeah, but also I think when you first come here, you're like. And you've got this idea of it. I was so fucking like, well, I was obsessed with the idea of living here. And then over the years, the reality sinks in, because living in America is it's a really hard place to live. And you don't realize until you fucking live here and you're not on holiday anymore. Even if you're here for 3 months or 6 months of the year, you're here on holiday. And you don't realize. I mean, I'm sure he's having a real lesson in that at the moment with how you guys trying to get your lives set up, because they make it so hard for you. They make it so hard for you. So I've got faith that your dreams will be answered.
Me too. Thank you. I'm confident.
And then your other song, Good Man, just came out last week, baby.
Congratulations.
I love that song. I find myself singing it all the time. And
so are you now releasing music on your own?
Yeah, so I got out of my deal with Sony, got all my rights back, and fought them for 18 months to get those rights and get the rest of the advance that I was owed.
Iconic.
Which was a lesson in tenacity and just fighting and fighting and fighting. But it took a long time. And, anyway, I got those rights back and then went away and made this EP. And now I'm putting it out with an independent label called Lab. And it's like a really easy deal in the artist's favor. They're able to provide some infrastructure, PR, that kind of thing. But it feels very much like a sort of DIY project. And the irony is I had all of these songs and all of these ideas while I was signed to a major label, but nothing ever happened with them. So, I'm glad to be putting them out, because when I left my deal, people were like, oh, and you probably hate all the songs you wrote while you were there because they're attached to this time. And I was like, No. I love all the songs I wrote.
That's the gift that you walk away with, is the songs that you got out of the situation. So
yeah.
So everybody go buy Marney's new music.
Well, stream it. Don't buy it. Don't buy it. Doesn't help. She needs streams.
Go listen. Stream it.
She needs PayPal me, guys.
Woke. I don't know.
It's not about being woke. It's about fucking understanding how Spotify works. Don't buy her music. Stream it a lot. Share it.
Does that give her money?
Bump that algorithm. She doesn't want money.
No, I do want money. I really do.
You want
the
money?
Option is, look, you can either PayPal me.
Just go fucking listen to her music, okay? Jesus Christ.
Is there going to be a video for Good Man? That's all I want to know.
Yes, absolutely.
When does it drop?
Videos, not next week, I think the week after. And it's exciting. It's a very fun video. It's weird because I thought Good Man was never meant to be released as the main single. The next song coming was meant to be released, but the next song is kind of like a much more up-tempo kind of like, it's not a dance song, that sounds so inappropriate, but it's like kind of weekendy and kind of has a groove. And it just felt inappropriate to put out until, at least in the UK, people are going out and, partying. So I said, oh, why don't we switch it round and slot Good Man in? And I would say it's had, at least among people messaging me, a better response than California, probably because California is something that maybe artists can relate to, but Good Man is a breakup song. And so
everyone loves a breakup song,
they do.
Yeah, but there is a video for it, and it was made in LA and in Death Valley.
So we got you at a really exciting time when all these new things are coming out.
Yeah, it is exciting. It's weird. It's hard. It's like any of these things, you sort of forget to feel it in the moment. You're like, oh yeah, I've tried to do this for 10 years and now I am. Woohoo.
Is it weird to be back on the like back on your grind and like doing music again and like back in like artist mode?
I think because of COVID, because I'm not doing meetings. I haven't even met my label. I've met them on Zoom, you know. It's like,
yeah,
I think it would feel a lot different if I was going to shows or if I was going into like Spotify's offices. But at the moment, it still feels nice, which I think is actually a blessing as an artist who's been through this experience to be able to get back to being an artist in a sort of little cozy space for a while.
Just a little soft entry.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy that you joined us today. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. I'm so happy to meet you.
Well, when the borders are open, we'll get together and
I can't wait to give you a big
drink.
hug.
Have a drink, have a hug. Everyone go stream Marney's music on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your music. And also you can listen to her. She has a radio show on Soho Radio.
Yes.
Where she plays country music amongst other things. It's absolutely outstandingly curated.
What's your show called?
So the station is Soho Radio, and one week I do Soho Rodeo, which is like country Americana. And then every other week I do 21st Century Greats, which is where I pick an album or sometimes an artist and a body of work from the last 21 years and say why that's a great, because I kind of got sick of people only talking about music from before they were born as being great, when I listen to so much contemporary music. I love it. And I think music moves at a pace now where we're able to identify. That's been really influential. And instead of waiting for people to die, let's just sort of pick out who the greats are now. So it's basically me just mainly, it's meant to be sort of music criticism, and it's me just going, Lord is so good. Oh my God. Oh, she's so
Apparently
good.
she's going to put a new album out this month during Pride Month.
This month?
I mean,
can't wait.
That's the word on the street.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm definitely going to be listening because I've been craving that music education for that exact reason. I'm like, why do I only know of older bands before my time and think of those as the classics? There's so much available today, but it's kind of overwhelming because there's so much.
Yeah.
That you just don't know. And if I try to go to like the top 40 or something, it's just horrifying. I just hate what I'm hearing, so I can't even approach it. So your show will be a perfect place for me to go.
Make a bitch a playlist. Come on, let's go.
Make me a playlist.
And then maybe we can like get her into some other things that we like.
Oh my God, I know how this is going to work.
She can watch Housewife.
Okay. When we meet, it's going to be me on the couch and you two watching Housewife reruns.
It's not going to be a rerun. It's going to be a new series for the rest of our lives.
Binging Housewives.
Don't frighten us.
Ladies.
Yeah.
I love you both.
Thank you so much, Marney, for
honestly, thank you. And also, I want to say, with Annabel, everything you've been through, I'm going to start crying. But
don't.
Please do. We encourage that on this show.
After all of this, everything I've spoken about, and now this is the bit, it is so lovely to hear you. Oh, no. It is, and it's so lovely being so far away from you, knowing that you have a friend who's,
I'm crying.
in it all, because it has been horrific, but it's also been so nice. Not nice is the wrong word, but it has been, I've felt so glad to be able to hear you and hear you go through your process and hear you talk about things that, I don't want you to have to relive the details of the day it happened and how you are, all of that. Like, I text you, whatever, but it's so nice to be able to hear you talk as you would talk to a friend, and not just like see a post on Instagram or sort of surmise things from texts here and there. It's really nice, and it is definitely so helpful to people. But as your friend, it is so lovely to hear you talk every week and hear you laugh and hear you cry and know that you have, your little unit.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for saying that. I love you.
I love the show. I love the show so much. And
thank you.
Like Nova said, I'm kind of gutted that I'm going to be, not getting a fresh episode.
Listen to yourself this weekend.
Oh, and I will.
Yeah. She's like, oh, I'm a narcissist, so I'll definitely be listening.
Will be. Yes, I will be doing that.
It's been an honor to have you. We appreciate it so much. And your story is really inspiring. It's really important that you just keep saying it out loud and sharing your light. You have so much light. You're just such a pleasure to talk to, and you're such a powerful woman. And I can't wait to see where you go next.
Oh, you guys. Yeah, it's a powerful glow. The curry sweats are a powerful glow. But thank you.
Let's do our sign off, okay?
All right.
Okay. Do I have to say I love you?
Yeah.
Yep.
She hates affection and hugs and all kinds of things. Ready?
Love you.
Love you.
Love you.
Somewhere down in Chelsea, madness came and helped me. Drugstores, hotels left me in therapy, Looked for God without you, found him, made me doubt you. Then we talked about you, and I began to fall. I knew it from the start.